Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another exciting episode of Barbershop Talk. Today, we have a very special guest. He is Ricardo Taylor, social studies teacher, high school social studies teacher in Jamaica. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about Marcus Garvey. As you know, we're in February, and this is Black History Month. So I'd like to shed some light on different people around the world or the region of the Caribbean that has done a lot of good stuff for Black people, and not only limited to the country they're from, but also went to other countries and try and spread the message and start a movement, if you want to say, for people who were underrepresented, undertreated. So Marcus Garvey. Marcus Mosiah Garvey was born a Jamaican political activist. He was a publisher, journalist, entrepreneur, and orator. He was the founder and the first president general of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and African Communities League, through which he declared himself Provisional President of Africa. He was born in August 17th, 1887, and died June 10th, 1940 in Kingston. He was born in St. Anne's Bay, and he died in London in 1940. Taylor, nice to see you, sir.
Oh, yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Right. So we just wanted to get your point or your view on, just there's a little bit about who Marcus Garvey is and some of the work that he has done in Jamaica and even in the US and in London, England, throughout those times.
Okay. Well, I think Marcus Garvey is probably the most, what you would call, I would say, underrated or publicized Pan-Africanist leader of his time, because Marcus was in Jamaica, the Caribbean. It was worldwide. So I'm just going to give you a brief bibliography of who Marcus Garvey was, where he was born, his accomplishments, his contribution to Black liberalization and black unity, because Marcus Garvey's teaching were mostly based on Black unity. So I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of who he was, where he was born, and his achievements.
All
right. So Marcus Garvey was born in St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica, just a few miles from where Bob Marley was born. Right? He was born in 1887. He was the youngest of 11 children, but surprisingly, only 2 children of the 11 survived until adulthood. Most of them died at a young age. So I don't know if that was the norm during the time. Marcus Garvey was brought up in a home where education was a priority. His father was a stonemason and his mother was an household helper, but they placed a significant emphasis on education. Marcus Garvey became a printer at age 14. So he left school at age 14, went to Kingston, started doing some work in the printery, where he later migrated to Central America, where he had some relatives. So he spent some years in Panama and in Costa Rica. But while there, Marcus Garvey noticed that there were struggles being faced by Black persons in Central America, which was pretty much the same that he left in Jamaica. So he decided to take it upon himself to start something to help, to see what he could do to help the struggles being faced by a Black person. So when he left South America, he came back to Jamaica. And in 1914, he founded the UNIA, which was the United Negro Improvement Association. He then left Jamaica and went to New York in 1916, where he basically expanded his work. He founded the Negro World, which was at the time the second Black-owned newspaper in America. He spent some time in Harlem. So most of his work was done from Harlem. So he founded the UNIA and the Negro World, and later on he founded the Black Star Line, which was a shipping company to establish trade between Central, South America, Africa, and the Caribbean, because he founded that Africa was basically being marginalized. So there was not much trade going on between Africa and the western part of the world. He also believed in repatriation. So the ship was basically to facilitate trade and to bring back persons who were in the Americas who wanted to go back to Africa. It was providing that opportunity for them to use the ship to basically repatriate.
Yes,
So
yes, I remember hearing stories in high school and readings. The Star Line was for that purpose. But you know, I spoke to some people here, and they I don't think they fully understand, because based on what I'm hearing, they think that the shipping company was started to only bring back people from Jamaica, people in this region, back to Africa as a means of transportation only. And I'm saying, no, I don't really think so. You know, I think that was a trade thing just to bring goods across from Africa to the Caribbean. But if you would like to come back,
exactly.
you know, you can hit a ride back. And I think that's why we have so much. There's a lot of Jamaicans in Ethiopia to this day. But I'll let you
Definitely.
talk more about that. 'Cause I think it's building up to that. So you could continue.
Yeah, man, I'll touch on that later on. So he founded the Black Star Line, which was really, as I said, to facilitate trade as well as to repatriate Africans who wanted to go back to Africa, because Marcus Garvey believed that in order for Black persons to really progress as a people, they needed to unify themselves. And that had to start with Africa becoming a single state entity, where instead of having different countries or Africa being divided, Africa would unite and have one leader and have one voice. So it was preaching his teachings along that line. So that is the whole reason why the Negro World was published, in order to spread the message, and the Black Star Line was established to facilitate trade and repatriation and all of that. But because of Marcus Garvey's influence, persons in America, especially the white population, became increasingly agitated with what Marcus Garvey was doing, because it is out of Marcus Garvey's works in the US why the FBI actually employed their first Black agent in order to spy on Marcus Garvey.
Oh wow, I didn't
So
know.
Mr. Edgar Hoover, who was the leader of the FBI at the time, employed the first Black individual to represent the FBI so that they could spy on Marcus Garvey and see what was happening regarding the Black Star Line and the whole Pan-Africanist movement.
Okay.
So because of that, and the threat that Marcus Garvey posed to the white supremacists, they basically framed him so that some mail fraud was taking place regarding the Black Star Line. So he was unfairly tried and sentenced. I think he spent about 3 years in prison in America because of that. So until this day, there are still records to show that the trial wasn't really justified and it wasn't fair. So he was unfairly sentenced. He was sent back to Jamaica. It is so funny because Marcus Garvey was one of the first Jamaicans to ever be deported. So he was deported back to Jamaica in 1935.
Right.
And then he left Jamaica and went on to England, where he spent the remainder of his days in England.
So was his
But
teaching
because of
different? Was his teachings in England?
I didn't hear that.
I'm saying, when he went to England, was his teachings or philosophy any different from that when he was in America? Was he still doing the same thing?
No, man, he was still doing the same, preaching Black unity, Black liberalization, because most of the Blacks in America at the time had a problem with Marcus Garvey because his approach was somewhat unconventional. Because Marcus Garvey's teachings and beliefs were in line with those of the Ku Klux Klan, where believed in racial separation.
Oh.
So in order for your race to progress, you had to separate yourselves from others and unite as a people.
Right.
So because of that, he had several meetings with members of the Ku Klux Klan at the time, and persons didn't like that because they were saying that, how can you be collaborating with the enemy? But Marcus Garvey believed that if the white man can separate himself from us, why can't we separate ourselves from them? That's the basis of his of his fight. So when he was deported to Jamaica, he went to England, where he continued his work in England. But before he went back to England, I should backtrack a bit. Before he went back to England, he came back to Jamaica and founded the first political party in Jamaica, which was the PPP, the People's Progressive Party. So after that, two other political parties were formed, the Jamaica Labour Party and the People's National Party. Mm-hmm. But the first election that he really participated in, he didn't really win his seat as a member of parliament. However, he was elected a councillor somewhere in East Kingston. So that's really the high point of his political career, was a councillor, but he didn't really hold a national political position.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't even know that part.
Yeah, man, he was the founder of the PPP. And it was because of Marcus Garvey's teaching to why the whole Rastafarian movement came about in Jamaica, because he was basically saying that in order for the white man to progress, we have to find a spot for ourselves in the world, which was Africa. And also we need to, if Europe was for the white man and America was being claimed by the white man, the black man had to look to the east for their home and for their figures and all of that. Mm-hmm. So during that time now, Emperor Haile Selassie crowned as regent of Ethiopia, right? And because of his biblical lineage to King Solomon and all of that, Mr. Leonard Howell, who founded the Rasta movement in Jamaica, saw it as the ideal opportunity to form a religion based on what Marcus Garvey was saying. So they believed that they saw Marcus Garvey as a prophet. So because Marcus Garvey was saying that a leader will come from the east and he will basically conquer what the black race has been trying to conquer for the longest while. Right. So they saw Emperor Selassie as that person. Right. So it was out of his teachings why the Rasta movement was formed by Mr. Leonard Howell in the 1930s.
And you said, so when Marcus Garvey predicted this, he predicted this before his death, right?
Before his death, exactly.
When he said this, he was still alive, and then he died a couple of years after. And then this whole movement, or this whole, how should I say now? The first king in Africa was from Ethiopia. Mm-hmm. And that's Haile Selassie, King Haile Selassie, which is now one of the trinity for the Rasta men.
Yes, some Rastas we must be in their God, but not all Rastas, because it depends on the Rasta faith is divided into tribes. So it depends on which tribe you belong to. Some see him as a leader, representative of Christ, while others see him as being the Christ.
Gotcha. Yes, this is deep, man. This is very deep. That's very interesting, man. So for some Rastas, some tribe, they hail King Selassie, Marcus Garvey, and Emmanuel as the Holy Trinity. Mm-hmm. And then for some others, they see him as a god. King Selassie
as a god, exactly. Right. So like with the Bible, where you have persons like Elijah and Moses and persons, like those who the Bible would consider as being prophets. That is how the Rasta faith holds Marcus Garvey as one of their prophets, because he basically predicted that a god would come from the east, which is Selassie.
Right. Interesting, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, man. So
what else did he do after England? I know he died in England. Did he do anything else significant?
Yeah, man, he did a lot of significant work, because it is out of Marcus Garvey's teaching while the whole civil rights movement in America came about. So persons like Malcolm X would have shared the views of Marcus Garvey, because Marcus Garvey's teachings came about because of his connections with Booker T. Washington, who was a black publicist at the time, who published writing to do with black barbarization and black unity and so forth. So persons like Malcolm X would have lobbied along the same lines that Marcus Garvey's teachings were pointing. So he believed that In order for you to progress, you had to unite as a race, and you also had to separate yourselves. And they believed in an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So they're saying that in order to break free of the white man's rule, you had to basically show them that you're not afraid of them. And you can be a united front. So that is what his teachings are about. Also, you have persons as far as we as Africa, because surprisingly, Marcus Garvey never went to Africa during his time preaching black unity and so forth. Oh, wow. He didn't have the opportunity to go to Africa. But later on, persons like Jomo Kenyatta, who Kenya is named after, did their freedom fighting based on the teachings of Marcus Garvey. Persons like Nelson Mandela, when he left prison, Jamaica was one of the first countries that he visited to visit Marcus Garvey's grave and so forth, because all of Nelson Mandela's fight with for the ANC during the time of apartheid in South Africa was based on the teachings of Marcus Garvey and the teachings that black persons had to befriend, they had to take their rightful place in society. Right. So his impact was far-fetched. It's not only in Jamaica or in the Caribbean. And also persons like Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam, their teachings are also in line with what Marcus Garvey was saying. So you would find out from time to time, literature published by Marcus Garvey would be widely used in meetings by the Nation of Islam or during the time of the Black Panther movement and so forth.
Yes. That's so true. Powerful, man. So that's really good that you share the parallel with Marcus Garvey and a lot of activists here in the US and on different sides of the world, and to show that, even though we're in different areas, we still have the same message for unity. And the approach might be different between each, but it's the same message about being together and united, and together we can overcome any obstacles, any barriers. And that was basically his preaching. And I guess Bob Marley sided with most of his philosophies as well.
Definitely, because a lot of songs that Bob Marley did would contain pieces of writing which were done by Marcus Garvey.
Yeah, man, powerful stuff, man. And this is why I want everybody to hear from the grapevine, if you may. Someone from the island who teaches this. He's been teaching this for years and years in the high school. He's a philosopher, a social studies teacher, historian, about some of the powerful work that Marcus Garvey has done. To many, he has made the path for a lot of activists around the world to continue preaching the message and doing the things that he thought would be justifiable at that time for unity. And we're in February, Black History Month. We can only continue to pay our tribute and respect to one of the great leaders of the movement, Most Honorable Marcus Garvey. And there are many others. I'm not downplaying anybody else, but I just want to shed some light on Marcus Garvey and how influential his words and teachings were to many other philosophers and movement activists across the world, not just in the region, but across the world. And to that we have to definitely pay tribute and respect to the Most Honorable Marcus Garvey. Mr. Taylor, it has been an honor talking to you. No, we have only 1 month for Black History Month, but hopefully we can touch base again if you have time, and we can talk about probably.
Definitely, man. It will be my pleasure.
Yes, man. We'd like to talk about a couple of the heroes that we have. One of the heroes that a lot of people don't know about is Nanny of the Maroon. We're going to save that for Maroon. And Nanny was a very serious activist, and I don't want to do any spoilers. I will let we can plan this for the future. A couple of weeks
no problem.
About Nanny, man. Nanny is a very powerful activist and hero in the Jamaica, and she is also represented, or she's honored to be on one of the $500 notes. That's the money currency that we can talk about that next time. But Mr. Taylor, for now, from the northern side of the New York State, which is really cold, and you seem to be in the
freezer.
I tell you, here in the warm side of the Caribbean, Jamaica, Catherine. I want to tell you thanks. It's been an honor, and we will definitely meet up again and talk some more.
Definitely, man. It's my pleasure.
All right, Mr. Taylor. You take care.
Yeah, man. You too. All right.